Hello to all you patriots out there in podcast land, and welcome to episode 289 of Canadian Patriot Podcast, the number one farming show in Canada. We're recording on March 22nd, 2021. My name is Andrew. Joining me tonight, we have Ian, Benny, Gavin, a very special guest from Quebec. Darren is joining the show.
We'd love to hear feedback about the show, so please visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or email us at feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. Feel free to tell us what your favorite farming implement is. Version of the show is available on Stitcher and iTunes.
We need your help to support the show. You can visit patreon.com/CPP and become a Patreon. You can get a better quality version of the show for just $1 per episode. Sure you're not a communist? Buy a CPP t-shirt for just $19.99 plus shipping and theft. Visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com homepage and follow the link on the right.
This brings us to my favorite segment, that's called What Are We Drinking? It's probably the only part of this show that won't be brought up in a court case. It's where I ask my co-conspirators what they're drinking. Roll around clockwise on the screen. We'll start with Ian. Ian, what are you drinking?
Good old standby Venezuelan rum and Coke. No, sorry. I gotta specify. This is but last of my Coke. I'll be switching over to Pepsi as soon as it's run out.
That's your privilege speaking. The fact that you can not only afford Pepsi, but also Coke.
Yes, well, I'll try and be less Coke-like, if you know what I mean.
I don't. White and powder?
That could mean a lot of that
Yes.
could be a lot of things in BC, yeah.
Yeah.
Benny, what are you drinking?
Drinking water tonight.
Lame. 2 liters?
Liter and a half.
Lame. Gavin, what are you drinking?
I am drinking, in honor of our special guest this evening, some Signal Hill with a wicked falconet on the bottle and Pepsi Max out of my horn.
Nice.
Here's to you, Darren, and the rest of you thick bags.
Wow. Wow. It's early in the
Spicy.
show for that, but okay. Darren, welcome. What are you drinking?
Rum.
Excellent. I have coffee pale ale because in my ongoing attempt to trigger Brian, who's not on the show tonight, I will find the weirdest beer I can. This one tastes like coffee.
That's not bad.
That's no, it tastes good. It's beer that tastes like coffee. It's
I
two
like
things
my stouts tasting like coffee and chocolate.
All right. So
Yep.
Darren is here. Darren is drinking some rum. Darren's going to tell us about his path to freedom, his crooked travels through the world. Let's go way back in the Wayback Machine. Do you want to tell everybody just a little bit where you're from, where you grew up, what young Darren was like?
Young Darren wanted to join the military. Young Darren grew up in halfway between Toronto and Barrie, a little town called Bond Head on just off the 400. And I wanted to join the military when I grew up and never got that chance till later. But I never got into firearms till a bit later in life. I had a good buddy who was a hunter. And when I went through high school, I kind of got a little brainwashed. And, science teachers and that kind of thing were like, oh, all the animals would do okay if it wasn't for people. And then I got out into the real world and find out that, actually, people and animals live in harmony, and we kind of have to look after the animals due to the effects that history has already happened. Wolves can no longer manage deer and that kind of thing because we have so much influence on different aspects of nature. So I started to get into hunting after that. He set me up and got my firearms license at a young age, and then started working on a farm for a while and decided to leave that, started my own company and ran that for a while, and then left that and moved to Quebec and started trying to get even more self-sufficient than I was before that. So,
Well, can we go back to your when you were running your own company, when you were working for yourself?
Yeah.
You had a well-known store in Ontario.
yep. Yep.
You were the official merchant of war.
And kayaks, I believe.
Yeah. Yep. I started it back when there was very few companies doing online sales for gear. Two famous ones, DS Tactical, Seals Action Gear. And so I set it up, and I was setting it up for buddies who were in the military. And I worked hard at it and was doing a lot of government contracting, which was good and bad. So my business relied a lot on that, which made it hard to restock the store for retail sales. So doing a government contract, the government wants you to fulfill like $150,000 order, $250,000 order. And then basically from start to finish, they don't pay for anywhere from 90 to 120 days, even though it should be net 30. So
confirm, yeah.
Yeah. So you're working on very slim margins, zero cash flow, and you're trying to restock for the civilian population as well. So it made it hard for me trying to finance that for myself. So it got a little stressful, and being very dependent on the government for sales as well is a very hard way to run a business. So the government can change things in an instant. For example, pulling out of Afghanistan, giving contracts to a certain company. So then sales dry up for certain product lines and that sort of thing. So it was extremely stressful for me to run that business. However, it was really rewarding at the same time.
I can very much appreciate that. This is being reliant on the government when the government is, well, the government.
Yeah.
Having to go through the contracting, having to go through procurement and payment and all of the, and of course everything is subject to change at their whim with
exactly
out providing any reason or notice. So you've sold the business in Ontario, you've decided to move to Quebec, and you're going to grow your own food and raise your own animals and basically go back to farming.
I think it was the stress and a family life that got to me, and went through a divorce, and I started dating a French girl, Quebec
well, that's
girl.
Trouble.
Exactly. And I knew for a while that I needed to change because the stress was just too much. So when I started dating her, we were dating for basically a year and driving back and forth from Ontario. And then a sales rep from where I'm working now contacted me because he was my sales rep at my company and said, we're looking for a sales rep here. So I said, oh, wow. Okay. So I'm dating a French girl, and now a Quebec company is looking for a sales rep. So I'm like, this is almost too good to be true. So I basically shut down the company, moved to Quebec, took the job. And so now I'm still doing what I love, less stress-free, and we're on 13 acres here. So for the first 2.5 years, we were living with my girlfriend's sister on her property. And we knew we wanted to buy the property from her. And we started working on the property, building it up to what we wanted, slowly adding more gardens, more trees, and that sort of thing. So, and then this summer, we finally bought the property from her and have just started to go full tilt on the full self-sufficiency plan.
Right on. So backing up a little bit, the move to Quebec and changing jobs. So you've gone from running your own business and being in the firearms industry. Now you're working for somebody else, but still in firearms and tactical stuff.
Yeah. So,
but more of a 9 to 5 type gig.
I'm in sales still, so it's still almost 24/7, which is fine by me because I love it. So to me, it's not a job at all. And to me now, I'm getting to support all of, not all of the firearm stores, but almost all of the stores across Canada. So instead of being in competition with those guys from what I was, now I'm actually supporting them and helping them grow as well and getting them the gear and the guns and firearms and stuff that they need. So it's really nice in that regard.
How does that balance with the homesteading and Mark on YouTube has a question. The company that you used to run in Ontario was One Shot Tactical Supply, and you were out of, it wasn't Kingston, it was Trenton.
Yeah.
Sorry. So that was One Shot Tactical Supply, which we can no longer buy things there. Even the badass hats.
Even the badass hats. I actually still have a few hidden down in the basement, which
I've seen a few floating around that look fairly new here and there at certain shooting events and whatnot. And it's like, oh, I think I might even have one tucked away somewhere.
Yeah. I'll have to dig them out of the basement and pass them out in certain spots.
I believe scarcity makes the price go up though, right?
That's true. That's a good point. Inflation and everything else happening nowadays, eh?
Well, and all the carrying costs, having that inventory for, you've been in Quebec now for almost 3 years?
It's been 3.5 years. Yeah. So.
And how are you finding balancing the full-time sales gig with the homesteading?
Really good. Really good. So my boss is amazing. The company I work for is amazing. So, the balance between home life and work life is really good. They have the outlook that if you do your job, you can basically, do what you need to do for yourself. So if you're looking after your clients, they're all happy, your performance as well. It's a good trade-off. So I can take that time I need as well throughout the day. If something happens around here, I can go out and look after it. No problem and no worry.
That's really good. And sorry, go ahead, Gavin.
Yeah. As somebody that runs a national company with a handful of sales guys, the ones that are performing well, I don't give a shit what they do. Like if I don't see them in the office, I don't care. The ones that are not performing well and I don't see them in the office, it's like, well, you're not in here being productive. Where the hell are you and what are you doing? But yeah, the ones that are pumping up those numbers and doing well, yeah, I don't care what they're doing as long as they're getting the job done, which is good. Yeah, if you want to take, an hour off in the middle of the day, but you're still performing, go right ahead. Keep doing your job. And yeah, sales is always a weird thing because like not all businesses are open Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Like some of them are only open on weekends. So like when you have to manage those, your work day is Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. But a sales guy, you got to be more or less available all day, any day.
And that's just it. Being in Quebec here, when I've got clients across Canada, guys could be phoning me at 7, 8 o'clock at their time, and it's later here. So
well, with like the left coast being on a different time zone and everything, like that's a problem right there. And even like the East Coast and their weird half-hour time zone difference, like
so you really got to take it as it comes and make sure you're looking after their needs, because that's really what it comes down to, is making sure they have the product they need, making sure they're looked after, making sure you solve their problems as fast as you can. So, and then it all works well.
All while feeding the chickens and cows and
yeah, exactly.
Building a greenhouse and
exactly.
So, I mean, you've mentioned that you can, run out, check on the chickens midday if there's a problem crop up. So was the working from home thing part of the plan with working for somebody else, or were you in the office and got COVIDed and then worked from homestead? The COVID kind of worked out in our favor
I mean, the whole thing started back when I was in Trenton, in Brighton area, and we were living along the railroad tracks. And I remember the one time that there was a train derailment in Port Hope, and they had to evacuate the town. And I didn't have to evacuate, but I was thinking at the time, you know, everyone always refers to prepping and preparedness and that kind of stuff as like, oh, the zombies, and that's what you're waiting for. But a single train derailment and you have to leave your house immediately, that's a huge thing. Where are you going to go? Do you have your money? Do you have credit cards? Do you have, something to rely on? So my whole preparedness started really at that point, and I've been working towards it. And then when we got here, we were slowly working towards it as well and building up towards it. And then COVID hit, and then we were able to work from home. So it kind of just, I don't know, it was like the perfect storm of getting everything ready for stuff. So working from home kind of fell into my lap, and, I was driving an hour to work both ways. So now I don't have to do that. I can take an hour at lunch if I want, go out, work on some projects.
Oh yeah, I mean, that right there is 3 hours of time to do stuff around the house that you didn't have already, right?
Exactly, which just allows us to complete those projects faster, which is just amazing for us. So I can go out in the morning, feed the chickens, check on the cows. When we have pigs in the summer, we can feed them, no problem. It makes it really nice. I really miss the social aspect, definitely, of what's gone on in the last year. But from a personal point of view, it's been really beneficial for us, actually.
I think there's I was going to say, I think there's a horrible stigma attached to the word prepper nowadays. I think in the old days, they used to just call it life, but now it's become homesteading and preparedness. And I mean, just like the train derailment, I mean, I think my buddy cracked a joke the other day. He's like, preparedness is kind of like a back in great, just like life in general, because sometimes just like your junk back in the day, it got hard for no reason. So if life gets hard, you got to be prepared for it for for whatever reason.
When you're saying back in the day, does that mean that like we need to get you a prescription, or
no? I'm just saying back in like grade 9 when you're in front of the chalkboard and doing a math problem in front of the class. It's just like, damn it, I can't.
I still have that problem when I do math, but
yeah.
I mean, it wasn't even that long ago where World War II, and even after that, people were stockpiling stuff, canning, prepping, just for situations where they might lose their job, or there might be a bad harvest or something like that. And we've kind of gotten away from that. And I think it's better for all of us to try and get back to that situation. I think it's better for the earth as well. If someone wants to come from a green perspective, the more of us who raise our own food, the less we have to rely on factory farms and corporations and deforestation and all that. So there's a great argument for the whole movement.
Well, especially knowing exactly what's going into your food, unlike factory product or whatever. And I mean, you can attach all sorts of labels that are really trendy nowadays, whether it be organic, free range, whatever. You can attach whatever you want to it, but it would imply it's just not certified under the government
artisanal, fair trade.
Exactly.
Organic,
heritage breeds, all that stuff. And
I don't know if you could use that one. That might be a little offside still, but
yeah, maybe. But but heritage breeds for chickens is actually a thing. And there's a Quebec breed called the Chanticleer. It's actually like a legit Quebec breed. But I mean, like back in the day, like if everybody had 3 chickens, not everybody, like say everybody who's living in the country had 3 chickens, you wouldn't need battery chicken farming as far as egg production goes, because there's just not enough people doing the domestic production anymore.
Exactly. We've got Chanticleers. Since we're in Quebec, we felt it was the perfect breed for us. So they're a good egg layer as well as a meat bird compared to getting egg specific chickens and then meat chickens. However, we do get meat chickens as well, just because it is better for meat production.
Yeah, like I think there's a lot to be said about the dual purpose chickens. Kind of do a little bit of each, but nothing well. But
Yeah,
that's what we stick is with the dual purpose chickens as well out here.
yeah, exactly.
What sort of chickens do you have then, Ian? We know that Darren's got Chanticleers.
I've got the Australorps, which are big giant black ones, literally. And
He
we
does
talked
have a
about.
majestic big black cock.
I do, yes. And occasionally I get stroked on podcasts too. But anyway,
Yeah, it likes to cuddle.
yeah, it does. So, but yeah, no, we've got the Australorps. So we've got a kind of a miscellaneous breed. It used to be like actually a couple other ones like Salmon Faverolles, which is another French breed, and a couple other ones. But we just stuck with the Australorps because they crank out about 300 eggs per year per chicken, and that's pretty good production. So, and they're also giant for meat, so works out well.
I mean, I don't want to make an offside comment here, but is it just me or is it weird that there seems to be an awful lot of French breeds of chicken? There's a joke somewhere in there, but I don't
Could
want to
be.
say
It
anything
comes from
weird.
the old
Yeah.
country when you think about, they had the time to mess around on the little farms there and breed out the weather hardy ones and stuff. Especially in Quebec, I think the Chanticleer is really cold weather hardy, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't have the comb like other chickens do, so we don't have to worry about frostbite with them.
Well, that's convenient, seeing as you probably get 2 weeks of summer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's where all of the construction in the province gets done.
Yeah.
All of it.
I thought that was when they took summer holiday.
That too.
Having worked construction projects in Quebec, can confirm.
Yep.
So can we go through the livestock list again there? So we've got chickens. You mentioned that you have pigs, but only in the summertime. You don't have winter hardy pigs?
Yeah, so some of the things that, I try and suggest people to do is if they want to get started in this kind of thing, or even, get out from under corporation and, underneath the man and that kind of stuff, stop going to the grocery store. The first thing you want to do is start getting a garden. Even people in an apartment can do a garden out on their patio, balcony. If you're in a townhouse, you have a bit of property, start a garden. Second thing, start a food forest. So instead of planting like a Japanese maple or an oak tree or something that's going to look pretty, plant an apple tree, plant a pear tree. There's pear, plum, apple trees that fit for all growing seasons. So get some of those planted. Underneath those, start planting cherry trees and camaries and that kind of stuff, blueberries. And underneath that, then start planting some sage and rosemary. So you create a little tiny ecosystem of all these plants to start sustaining yourself and start being able to provide for yourself.
Even in World War II, they had victory gardens, right? They
Exactly.
wanted everybody to have their backyard. Instead of having a nice lawn in front of your house, you could always rip it up and have a garden, right?
Exactly.
And I guess one of the good things about the whole Corona thing is that almost everyone started a COVID garden. I mean, I know I certainly did because I had some free time on my hands and it wasn't anything impressive. But I mean, we did manage to
say last year in the springtime when this happened, the city did buy out all of the good seeds.
Yeah, my wife invested in a lot of seeds and did a lot of trading over the winter in a bunch of Facebook groups to build quite an array of different seeds, and not just your tomatoes and your cucumbers or whatever, but a large variety of tomatoes, cucumbers, and other fruits and vegetables that can really sustain.
Yeah, ours was very modest, but we did manage to get a couple of meals worth of vegetables out of it, and roughly
also a lot of pot.
Yeah, roughly a bushel of marijuana. and we've got like fresh basil and sage and stuff now that we're continuing to grow throughout the winter just to have it around because it looks nice and it smells good and you can use it when you need to. And I make my own pesto sauce from it and all that. So like,
Made for
handy.
mojitos and all that stuff,
Yeah.
But same thing. Like he was talking about companion gardening. That's certainly one way to do it as well. But under the auspices of testing your gear, the problem is a lot of these people went out and bought seeds, but had no idea how to garden. So probably for the first 6 months,
from our local seed and feed store.
Yeah, so they bought all these seeds out and then basically probably killed off 3/4 of them because they didn't know what the hell they were doing. So I mean, it's actually something you should be doing all the time rather than when an emergency starts.
Well, yeah. I mean, look at
doesn't help you to throw it in the ground when an emergency happens because
damn it.
Yeah. To use unfortunately an American example. I mean, look at Chaz when they were all barricaded in and were like, "We're starving. Send us the foods," and they started their I don't want to call it a victory garden, but their pathetic garden.
It was a community garden.
It didn't really work on cardboard. You're already starving. Planting stuff now isn't going to help you. You need to have planted it several weeks and or months in advance so that when you get hungry, it's ready to eat. But
throwing some cardboard down and some potting soil isn't going to help. You got to actually plant it in something.
Yeah. I really like Darren's example of putting down trees. That was one of the first things that we did on my little tiny property when we bought, was put in trees, because the first couple of years they're not very productive.
It's a 5-year payback on a lot of apple trees, right?
Exactly.
Like getting those larger trees in early and getting them established, and then doing the undergrowth, the smaller items. I think this is probably one of those overlooked things, because I think trees are a great thing, especially the fruit bearing variety. Those are delicious, but like apple trees don't produce the first couple of years, right? I mean,
once they start getting bigger, they start producing. But again, start getting that sage in, the rosemary, rhubarb, anything. Just create your own little mini forest ecosystem in whatever space you have.
So is it safe to say that, talking about food forests and that you're on the permaculture bandwagon?
Yes and no. Due to my background, I haven't completely fallen into that, due to what I find is a lot of the dirty hippies, if I can say that, are involved in that.
Yes. You definitely can say dirty hippie.
Yeah. I have a few buddies who have gotten into it, some which are military in that, and I fully support and I love it. It's just, I find the whole permaculture attitude itself a little too socialist and a little too of that dirty hippie sort of thing. Yeah. So
this is coming from a guy that's living in Quebec.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's my catchphrase. I mean, they are a good source of information when it comes to gardening, but by the same token, they take it a little too far with the socialism, like you said.
Yeah. So with the gardens themselves too, what I see a lot of people doing is they'll grow, I want to grow broccoli and cauliflower, carrots and onions and chives. And so they go nuts on that in the small bed that they have. And then you have a meal for one night. So what I always recommend new gardeners doing is, if you have a small space, just grow one of something. Just plant all carrots, just plant all broccoli, just plant all lettuce, just plant one of something. So then you can actually harvest that, can it or freeze it. And then you'll have weeks or months worth of meals that you can add to. Whereas, you grow 2 broccoli and, well, there's a meal for tonight and tomorrow night after waiting the entire year for it to grow. So
that's assuming you don't lose one of the rabbits.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and then getting back to the animals, chickens are a great way to start. Get 2 chickens, 3 chickens. They don't take up much space. And suddenly now you have your egg production. You don't have to go to the grocery store for your eggs. If you get a dual purpose one that does eggs and meat, Well, then you can start saving those eggs later if you get a rooster and start producing your own food, be it through incubation and raising new chickens. So there's basically your eggs and your meat taken care of that way. We have rabbits too that we just started breeding. Very inexpensive, and rabbits produce tons of little rabbits, which are inexpensive to keep. And there's another form of meat. Pigs are another great way to produce meat. You can grab them we buy them at $80 for a new one in the spring. And then we raise them up to about 240 pounds and kill them basically early fall. And there's basically our pork meat for the year. And then another one that I always suggest is bees. If you have a spot for a little hive out the back, even someone in a townhouse with a little backyard can have bees. As long as you give them a little space, you don't have kids or dogs annoying that hive, stay a few feet away from it, you can harvest honey. So we got 40 pounds of honey the first year we had bees. So there's another great way to make mead and trade with friends who have other stuff as well. So I suggest basically if you can do any of those four, or the garden and the food forest, it's a great way to get out from underneath, corporate's foot.
Well, especially when you offset the feed costs with the pigs and the chickens, like you don't need a green bin with those two around. I mean, basically food scraps alone can make up a good chunk of their feed as well. So it's, if you want to be a little more green, you can do it that way. And again, just pay less to the man that way.
Feed the commies to them too.
Yeah,
so I'm just saying they're omnivores, both of them.
So, exactly.
Yeah, and the chickens are basically just pigs with feathers. So as far as what they'll eat.
And if you can let the chickens free range, that reduces your feed costs. If you
and when you want to sell their meat later, you can call them free range, which ups the value.
Exactly.
Cage free, organic, antibiotic free, all that other stuff. You throw all sorts of labels.
All of those cost saving things, but then somehow that makes the value more.
That's right.
Yeah. And depending where you're from,
hippies,
you can't technically sell. Like we can't technically sell anything here, but we can trade and give away and that sort of
selling
stuff.
It's trade and barter.
Exactly. Exactly. So
you don't want to piss off the dairy mafia or the maple syrup mafia, or sorry, the cartel. No, that's not the right word.
Get on their bad side and you're toast.
Yeah. Without government, who would regulate the milk and maple syrup and production of everything?
Who would make sure we have enough?
I feel like
and make you dump it out when you have too much.
Exactly.
Farmers seem to do a pretty good job of that over history, but
yeah.
I feel like that still falls on the individual somehow.
Yeah, and that's just it. It's like the more you're able to look after yourself, the more you don't have to worry about the inconvenience of tiny emergencies or price changes and fluctuations, or we had COVID, they sold out of toilet paper. Well, you can't grow toilet paper, but I mean, that kind of thing where
but you can grow rabbits, and those are basically the same thing.
Perfect for that kind of thing.
But it doesn't even stick to their fur.
No, exactly. But like making your own bread, or if you're doing a sourdough, you don't have to worry about yeast in the grocery store. If you have your own chickens laying eggs, you don't have to worry about that. So
exactly, and every little step that you can take towards that, even if it's a little tiny, baby step, is one more thing. Like if all you have is chickens, and you're lucky and you've got the dual variety, well, you're getting a little bit of egg and a little bit of meat. Like it might not be awesome to live off of that for your whole life, but for a short period of time, if all you have is eggs and chicken meat, that can get you by.
It goes
like
a
if
long
all
way.
of a sudden, if all of a sudden the grocery stores just like shut down, you're like, well, I guess I have to eat eggs and chicken meat for the next week. Is it going to be boring? Yes,
but you won't.
But you have, you have food, right? That you don't have to leave the house for.
I can also
I wanna-
guarantee, based on the ethnicity of every single panelist here that I know of, anyways, I think somebody in their family history has gone through a starvation period, so they can appreciate having food on hand. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I usually have eggs every morning for breakfast. So I'll make 2 loaves, maybe 3 loaves of bread each week. And there's my breakfast, sometimes lunch, because I'll have chicken for lunch. So it makes a huge dent in what you don't have to pay at the grocery store and how many times you have to go shopping.
Can we break the chickens down a little bit for people that didn't do 4-H growing up? I have a chicken.
Yes.
I have the laying variety of chicken.
Mhm.
We'll just assume it's like an average chicken, not necessarily the French combless chicken or Ian's. I don't remember what Ian's kind of chicken
So-
was.
I believe
For-
it's a mutt. Is Ian's chicken is?
yeah,
Not
So
Ostrorps.
for most people, you can go into your local co-op. I would say look it up in the yellow pages, but those don't exist anymore. Look it up on whatever Google, find your local co-op, and you can go in there. And usually in the spring, you can order however many chickens you want to order, both a laying breed or a meat bird. So if you want to raise meat birds, you can order them. If you want to raise laying birds, you can order them. If you're getting into the dual purpose, most likely you'll have to find someone that is raising them. You can't usually find those in your local co-op.
As a
Okay,
general rule,
so-
though, most of the local stores like TSC in Ontario, like
Yeah.
the Tractor Supply Company, they're going
Well,
to bring
that's
in.
PV Mart now, which is a stupid
Yeah.
name.
Oh, okay, well, anyways, they would bring in a chicken that's like appropriate for the area they're living in. It might not be the ideal breed for you, but at least you know it's going to work.
But
And
it's
plan
yeah,
for losses, right? So if you want 3 chickens, maybe order 6 because you're going to lose a couple along the way.
yeah.
Yeah, especially
So-
meat birds, high mortality rate.
You get your chicken. Let's assume it's a laying hen.
Yep.
How many eggs can I reasonably expect to get out of a chicken and for how long? I imagine they have a lifespan.
So what I'd suggest is depending on your family size, grab 2 or 3 laying chickens. And during the summer, you can reasonably expect to get 1 egg a day from each of them. Going
Awesome.
into the winter, you might get 1 egg a day for all 3 of them, or none a day. Like you might get 1 every couple days, depending on the amount of light they have, because it's the light that makes a difference. So for ours, it's usually cut in half for the amount of eggs we have winter to summer.
You can artificially play with those with the light levels, but we don't, because during the winter they kind of refresh and like molt out, change out their feathers, and kind of recharge over the winter when they're laying less. We get about 6 eggs per week per chicken. They take a day off, literally they take Sunday off, so to speak. And then
So they're Catholics.
they kind of, yeah. They basically, yeah, I think it's every 28 hours or something like that. They lay, and then they take a day off and reset the clock. And then after that, they go through henopause after about 3 years. But in the factory chickens, they run them out in about 4 months, and they change the light levels so they're laying 2 or 3 eggs a day, and they burn them out that much faster.
Okay, well, let's assume we're not doing like factory farming. I got a yard. I'm putting some chickens in it, so I'm
Yep.
figuring
So,
on getting.
so 2 or 3 eggs per person per omelet you want to eat a day.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm figuring that my one chicken is giving me
1 egg a day.
less eggs per day than I have years, or days in the year, but not by much. It seems like.
No.
So
Yeah,
if I
if you
get
like a nice,
300-ish eggs a day or 250 eggs a day, I'm sorry, 250, 300 eggs a year.
Yeah.
Out of my chicken, that would be like an average kind of a chicken.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then my chicken's gonna last me for a couple of 3 years, and then
I'd say
do they stop
probably
or
on
do they like
average
wear
about
out?
2 years.
2 years?
What people say is chickens have a finite amount of eggs within them. So whether you increase the artificial light to maximize those eggs all right up front, or allow them to lay naturally over the course of 2-3 years, it's up to you. sort of thing.
Okay.
So what I'd say is if you do it naturally, you'll probably have 300 eggs a year for 2 years for one bird.
And then my chicken graduates to being soup.
Well, if you have an Instapot, the hens are a little bit tough and stringy, so you got to like soften that meat somehow.
Yeah. For
But-
an egg
but if
laying
you-
bird, I'd suggest kind of chicken soup, or if you have dogs or pigs.
Yeah, I was just if you've got pigs, yeah, you can
Yeah.
turn it into feed, and there's a meal for a pig or two. yeah.
Exactly.
All right. So now I'm going to convince my wife to let me have pigs. This is going to go well.
I believe your dietitian said that you're allowed bacon twice a week.
Yes, that's right.
So there you go. That's, I mean, how else are you supposed to get the bacon?
I mean, fair enough. We've also there's a lot of questions on the YouTube, and I'll try and get through a bunch of them here. But
Yeah, that's
in terms of if you wanted to grow a meat chicken,
yeah.
I imagine we're not keeping it around for 2 years for it to plump up, but it's probably
No,
got
meat chickens are quite a bit faster. So I want to say we keep ours for maybe 2 months, if I remember correctly. But there's a high mortality rate. So last year we got 40 chickens. I think we were able to harvest 33 of them, and they produce a good amount of meat. Like you're talking, if you go into the grocery store and you pick out the biggest breasts, your meat chickens,
which I always do because that's
your
what
meat
I'm
chickens
into.
will produce probably bigger than that. It's just great that way.
So
When
is the
it's-
high mortality rate because they die, or is that because they're just getting picked off by like coyotes and
No, it's just because I think the genetics on them, they're just bred to be fat and lazy. Their feet get too big, they can't move around. So a
so
lot
they're
of
liberal chickens? Okay, yeah.
yeah,
And they
yeah.
die of heart failure actually a lot of times.
yeah. Or
So you
like
got to
we-
get them before that, right? The day before, so they're at their plumpest. But
yeah, we had one that basically tried to escape from the electric netting and died from basically shock or heart failure or something. You also get ones that their legs splay because their body's too heavy or their legs are too fat and they
have you
can't move
considered
around to get
cranking
water and
the
feed.
voltage up on the fence so that you just like if it does do that, it's cooked and it's good to go?
Have you smelled burned feathers?
I mean, yes, but
Ah.
Yeah.
I think the problem is too is like it sounds horrible, but yeah, if they move around a bunch and you're trying to fatten them up, obviously you're going to spend a lot more money giving more feed to them in order to get the same amount of meat. So the meat birds generally are kind of literally cooped up in a tight little run, so they kind of maximize the inputs versus
yeah,
the
you don't want
outputs.
to burn off the fat. Yeah.
No, so you got to
We
keep them on the
don't
couch,
exercise the chickens. I see.
not the
you
meat
can
ones. No,
you can let them walk around. It's just they don't really walk around. Half the time they're just sitting on their butts eating. So
And what are we looking at cost input wise to feed these guys?
not much.
Like pennies a day, dimes a day? I'm not sure what a bag of chicken feed goes for or how much these little guys eat.
Get a
I'd
wood-
have to get back to you on that and actually
Okay.
let you know because I'm in Quebec, I don't speak much French. So Bridget orders all the stuff for us. So I haven't really paid for anything or ordered anything in like 3.5 years.
It's
So
convenient. I mean, okay, so step 1, find yourself a French girl. Step 2, get her to do all the management. Step 3, buy some chickens.
exactly.
It sounds
Yeah,
like a solid
exactly.
plan. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you get to sit around and drink rum and talk to your friends on the internet. It's it's a good
Exactly.
deal. Yeah.
It works for me.
That works. A question regarding the buying of chicks at your local co-op there. Do you have a preference, day olds versus starters?
For us right now, because we don't have a barn or true facility for keeping them indoors, we prefer getting them. I think we get them at 3 weeks old, 4 weeks old, something like that. And so we can almost just stick them in our one coop and they're basically good to go. I think last year we had, because it was cooler, we had the heat lamp on them for a week. But I mean, if you can get them earlier and pay less for them, I don't know how the math works out on if it's cheaper to get them earlier and feed them that way and provide the heat and look after them, or to get them later and feed less. It's one of those that you'd have to study that over a couple of years to see what's actually more effective. Yeah.
That makes sense.
For
the
us, we
Albertan
get
says
them later, though.
The Albertan says I'm not supposed to make fun of PV Mart. Apparently, it's a big deal in Alberta.
It is, but I mean,
still a stupid name for TSC.
Still a dumb name. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, hands down, like my wife used to actually be the 4-H poultry leader. We did the math on it, and you can't beat it. I mean, as far as buying, 2-week-old chickens or 3-week-old chickens, you're much better off from a financial perspective. You just can't beat the economics of scale that they have. But for us, we were actually doing it for like showing and stuff. So we'd actually like hatch our own from the incubator and everything else to work them way up. But there's no way you can approach the same cost level that they can provide them to you at. So as far as like a new chicken person, don't get the day olds, get the ones that are a little bit bigger. And you'll have a lot less problems because most of the mortality happens in the first couple of weeks anyway.
Yeah, we've got an incubator. So we raise our own Chanticleers. However, it'll be a few years before we even pay off the incubator and the costs involved in that. So it's an investment over the longer term for that kind of thing, raising your own, than going into the co-op and buying some.
Well, and I mean, that's just like an extra layer of, just self-reliance too, right? Like you're not even relying on somebody else to birth the chicken for you. You can now do that yourself, and so step one is just
that's why we got it, is
buy some egg laying chickens. Step 2, get a cock. Step 3, start making your own chickens, right?
Yeah.
But sooner you got to switch cocks out, because then you got inbreeding issues after a while too. So you got to.
Well, exactly. Every cock gets burned out after a while and needs to rest.
Yeah, that's right.
There's pills for that.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried doing mushrooms in your garden?
Mushrooms? No.
Okay.
We're not a big mushroom fan. So for us, even foraging in the backwoods, we grow a huge variety of mushrooms back there, but we could go out and forage them, but we're not big mushrooms fans, so we don't even bother doing that.
Well, from a purpose perspective, there's no food value in mushrooms, right? Like there's very few calories to be had, and it's very easy to screw up.
In the YouTube chat.
Yeah, that's right. I'm just answering. And also, it's very easy to screw up the edible from the poisonous ones. Like you have to actually get a book and talk about stems and undersides and gills and color. And
sometimes when you eat the poisonous ones, fun things happen.
Yeah, then you get some kaleidoscope vision and everything else. But
which during the coronas, when you can't travel anywhere, you don't even have to leave to go take a trip.
That's true. But yeah, like we've got the books on the foraging for mushroom stuff. But yeah, diminishing returns on that for sure.
All mushrooms are edible, some just only once.
Yeah,
exactly.
But, Andrew, if you're looking for a pig, a truffle pig is a thing, and that will help you find the edible mushrooms.
All right, I'm not, but I guess we made Mark on the internet sad because he's going to try doing blue oyster mushrooms, it seems like.
Is that like blue oyster cult mushrooms or just blue oyster?
He does not fear the Reaper.
Yeah, there is
obviously, yeah.
And there are lobster mushrooms. There are all sorts of fun ones like pine mushrooms, which are really good, but hard to find.
I don't know, man. Anything that grows and shit is not something I want to stick in my mouth. But
sorry, Mark. I don't think we're going to be able to help you culture your mushrooms.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got the chickens more or less under control. Pigs sound like a big step.
Yes and no. If again, it comes down to that thing no one wants to say, but if your municipality allows it, or
I'm not allowed to have chickens even. Like you can have doves or quails, stuff like that. I can't have chickens where I am.
We can have anything we want: bison, caribou, elk. We've got our Highland cows. We can't have emus or ostriches.
That's bizarre.
Allegedly.
That's lame.
So I don't
What
know
if your
who did
emu or
what.
ostrich identifies as something else?
I don't know who did what for that bylaw to be written, but
That ginger.
Yeah.
Some sort of anti-egg.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
But yeah, for pigs, we buy them in the spring at $80, feed them for a few months, and then kill them at 240 pounds, usually early fall. So, and we don't have much room for them. They have, I want to say it's 50 feet by 50 feet for 3 of them we had last year. So not a great deal of size or care that goes into it. Make sure they have water and feed them.
Yeah.
Shelter, basically a roof over their head, and they're happy.
Yeah, so you're looking, I mean, once you get rid of all the bones and the stuff, like 700 pounds, give or take, of pork.
We had, I think you
That's not
calculate it like 40% is your throwaway. So 40% is bones, fat.
It's so a little bit less than
organs.
that, but that's still a
So
decent amount.
I think it's also very important too with what you feed them is how the pork's going to taste. So I think if you have those companion plants like he was mentioning, the fruit trees and stuff, and you take the ground apples of the fruit that falls from the ground you don't want to eat and throw it at the pigs, you're going to get a much better product as well.
Well, and then you
last
also
year
have
we
the
had,
herbs and spices to season it with after too.
Exactly.
So the trick is to start them before you process them. I see. This is good information.
Yeah.
Talk about a long marinade.
Last year we had turnips from the garden. We had too much lettuce. We had lettuce that was eaten by bugs, turnip that was eaten by bugs. You cut the tops off the radishes because you don't eat those, or we don't anyway. So all that stuff goes to the pigs. So it cuts down on your actual feed bills as well.
And then what was the leap to get into cows, and why Highland cows?
So for us, back in Ontario, I hunted quite a bit, and I was able to usually get a deer. I'd go up moose hunting. So usually I had red meat all the time. Here in Quebec, when I came, it took me a while to get my hunting license switched over. We don't have very many deer on the property. I didn't have anyone to go out moose hunting with at the time. So we were kind of strapped for red meat unless we went into the grocery store to buy it. So I had also always wanted Highland cows, being Scottish in my roots. So it was kind of,
They are the best looking cow too. Let's be honest.
They really are. So we decided to get some Highland cows and basically start our own herd, invest for kind of the long term. Because unlike chickens and rabbits and pigs, it's a wee bit more expensive, and the payoff is not upfront. It is longer term, especially if you're breeding. If you're buying one cow and raising it up to kill, within a year, it's a little different story. But we've got 4, and we want to develop a herd, and then sort of our red meat supply will be guaranteed in 2 years, 3 years for the rest of our life.
From what I understand, that breed is actually the one of the best converters of feed to meat, like as far as efficiency goes with cows, right?
For the Highland cows, they're great because they're used to eating moss and branches and twigs.
Scottish people are cheap, so they want to convert as much of that free food into
hardy folk.
Yeah,
exactly.
The reason why the thistles are official flour. They're too cheap to hire a gardener.
Yeah. So compared to other breeds where they need, I wouldn't say they need, but they work better on a higher quality feed. So they're better on grasslands to convert that into meat, whereas the Highlands, they're okay with the moss and the twigs and stuff.
And they look great in kilts.
They do. They really do. It's like we get so many compliments and people want to pet them and come up and talk to them, and it's hilarious.
Well, I think it's less of a big deal too if they get caught in a snowstorm than a regular cow, which has a very, a very flat hair level versus the Highland coos, which are a little bit more hardy.
We don't need a barn at all. They're out in -20, -25. They'll be sleeping out on the hay bale itself instead of in the shelter that we built for them. So it's nice that way. We don't need a barn to look after them and keep them warm.
Were there any other surprises with that? Because I mean, like growing up, we had beef cattle, and they were not exactly cold weather tolerant. So I'm surprised that you have cows out at -25 and they're happy about it.
They have no problem. It's the Highlands, because of their hair, it keeps them warm. They don't have as much fat content as other cows, but they have so much more hair. So we find that they'll be out -25, laying on a hay bale, or they'll go out when the sun comes up. They'll head to the south part of our paddock and lay out in the sun if it's really cold to warm up there. But there were no real surprises at all for us. My aunt and uncle had 250 head dairy farm. So I was used to cattle growing up, not beef, dairy, but the dairy actually take more work than the beef cows do. So, and then I spent 13 years on a horse farm. So dealing with horses compared to these animals, it's not a problem at all. So
you said the Highlanders are mainly a beef breed then, versus a milking breed?
Most people raise them as beef. However, again, like our chickens, they're dual purpose. So you can milk them and do milk and cheese and butter and everything with them. However, most people don't. Most people just use them for the meat.
Yeah, because when you actually milk a Highland cow, it's just scotch that comes out.
Maybe you're pulling out all the hairs.
Yeah. I have unkind things to say about dairy farming, but we'll bypass my own tastes right now.
Super important question though, quickly. Have you got a set of Highland cow horns on your truck yet though?
Not yet.
Okay.
See one on the wall though.
Yes, I do have a big longhorn, Texas longhorn set up on the walls.
You'll need to get
but we have to actually harvest our one bull in the next couple months. I got to finish building the cooler in the basement first, and then once we harvest him, then we'll be able to basically take that skull and do something with it, as well as the hide and everything else as well.
Nice.
Is that something that you're trying to do with a lot of your animals, is process them and use all the pieces?
Exactly, as much as possible. So even with the pigs, if we don't eat it, we'll save what we can for our dogs or trade the neighbor and they use it for their dogs. The feet themselves, if we don't use for stew, the hoofs, the dogs will use as chew toys. The rabbits, we process and tan all the hides as well. So we'll use them for mitten linings and that kind of stuff, or clothing that Bridget will make. So
I was going to say, you guys seem to be pretty crafty, making leather bags and scarves and all kinds of cool clothing and accessories out of that stuff.
Yeah, Bridget will try and use as much as that as she can within her arts, and again, making clothing as well. So
I think the nice
Oh.
thing is too, if you have spare lard, you can either turn it into deep fryer material or mix it in with the deer meat and give it a little bit less of a lean taste.
So all our lard we've actually saved from all the animals, and this summer, spring, once we can open the windows here or go out to the garage, we're going to start making our own soap as well. So
I was just going to say,
we'll
stay
use that for
tuned
soap.
next
Yeah.
month for Fight Club, where we talk about making our own soap.
Yeah. So we're doing that. We save all our bacon grease. So we'll use that for lining pans for our cooking and baking. Cooking my eggs in the morning, I'll use bacon grease instead of butter in the pan. So we try and use everything and save everything that we can.
That's very cool that you've been able to work through that and have all the processes and systems in place to be able to support doing that. It sounds like it's an ever growing and evolving process. Like you just talked about, you're going to put in a cooler for a cow. That's going to be a substantial size cooler.
It is. So it's going to be basically 6x6. We're using air conditioning system with a cool bot, so we can take that temperature down to the 5-6 degrees where we need it to actually age the meat. Our big problem, we got all excited. We were trying to get our cows pregnant by artificial insemination and weren't set up to be able to get the vet in to do that. So we bought a bull, got the bull in here, and we're like, yeah, we'll get the bull. That'll do it for us. And then we can harvest the bull. Well, we don't have a trailer, so we can't take the bull anywhere. No one will come pick up the bull. And even if we do take it to a processing plant, the chances of us getting the skull back, the hide back, the organs back, the feet back, everything we want to be able to use is slim to none. So we realized kind of quickly that we were going to have to do everything here, from harvesting to butchering. So that really drove us to be able to build that cooler in the basement, where once we harvest him, we can dress him, take him down to the cooler and leave him there for 2 weeks. And then I can bring up, a hind quarter or a front quarter and butcher it upstairs, taking my time to do it properly, rather than trying to hang it in the garage where the temperature fluctuates and I might lose it. So,
well, that's the nice thing too, is you'll be able to age some of it a little bit longer and get that better quality flavor out of it too. And that gives you the time to, this is the meat that I need now. I'll save the better cuts for later and let them age a little more. And
exactly.
We found that when you actually send the meat out to get processed commercially, you end up having some leakage at the butcher shop. It seems that they keep it a little bit for themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. And even with the pigs last year, we basically killed them and then butchered them the same day. Whereas it would have been nicer if we were able to harvest them and then let them age for even a few days or a week in a cooler spot, just to be able to make it easier to process them as well.
And having that, when you do finally start getting more into hunting and being able to do that, you'll have the facility to do that with anything that you harvest in that way. And if you put a little section next to it, you'll be able to put a keg of beer in it and keep that cold too.
Oh, exactly. That's just it. So we figure it's against the back wall, so we won't have to run the air conditioning unit all the time. It'll just be cool because it's on the back wall. We can store all our canned goods in there, anything we want to preserve, say our carrots, our potatoes, that onions, we'll stick in there, and that should preserve them as well.
It's almost like you've thought about this a lot.
There's a lot of thinking. A little too much. Hurts the brain sometimes.
I don't know about that. It sounds like you got pretty good plans laid out for this. You've touched on a couple of things with canning and preserving. Are you guys big into that? It sounds like you're pretty big into baking and obviously into the animal husbandry.
Yeah.
That sounds so much dirtier than it actually is when you say it like that.
I'm particular about the language I use. Yes.
The canning and bake, or the canning, preserving, we need to get more into. We haven't done as much as we need to. Most of our stuff, our carrots, leeks, everything from the garden, we've kind of frozen instead of preserving in cans. So we want to take the time and learn a little more to be able to can a lot more rather than just freezing everything.
It's one thing we've learned because of the COVID thing is stack up a lot of supplies, like the reusable or the single-use lids and the jars, everything else, because there's quite the run on them for the last year or so. But stock's just coming back in now, so even if you stock up on the consumables first and then get into it later on, that's fine too, right?
I got kind of lucky because as we were getting into this, I ordered a ton of mason jars, the lids, the jars, everything from, I think it was Walmart or somewhere else. So I had like an 18-wheeler come in with mason jars right before COVID hit. So it was almost like perfect timing for that. So now we just got to utilize it and make sure we're using it properly.
Yeah, we had to go grab a few for our bushel of marijuana. And I mean, we found here, like in the city, like some places only have them at certain times of the year.
Yep.
So like they'll bring a bunch in for when people start doing the preserving. But if you try to get a mason jar from the same place at some other time in the year, they're like, nah, bro, we ain't got none. Where other places just like have a very small amount all year round, because like people do use mason jars for more than canning and preserving and stuff like that. Like our Dutch friend uses them to save screws.
Yeah. Well, I guess you can ferment marijuana in that too, right? Like you can use it to like let it off gas or whatever. I've never done it myself, but I understand that's a thing.
Yeah, I don't do the marijuanas.
Not talking about your degenerate drug use.
I just let the girlfriend do it. She puts it in a jar, and it's not my problem. I'll water it occasionally.
Just to keep it in a container. Anyway.
Yeah, it keeps it fresh.
The point.
You gotta burp it once in a while. I understand too.
Well, that's when you open it up to roll a doobie.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, we use it for our honey and that as well. So
I wanted to ask
they
you
come
about
in
your
useful
honey
for
processing.
basically everything.
Yeah, I think we might need to put you in touch with our Dutch friend that you could talk honey with and how to can and preserve things, because he seems to be big into that.
Or he's doing syrup today, which is why Marty is not on the show again, because Marty has the most disdain for the audience. Apparently, he's busy processing syrup.
Yeah.
On the topic of honeybees, as a new honeybee person, if somebody wanted to get into that, because it is I think a pretty low barrier to entry. Do you have a recommendation about how to get into that? Is there a good resource or a good place to go, or is there any, say, intrusive government oversight in that process?
For Quebec, you're supposed to register your beehives, but
what are they, guns?
I know. Yeah. So Ontario and Quebec, basically, there's a whole bunch of different beekeepers, people who raise queens and nukes, and so you can order them every spring from them. There's also companies that will provide you with everything you need, and you just have to kind of help them, and then you get a part of the harvest. So depending on how you want to do it, you can order your own hives and then order your own bees and get set up that way. Bees are slightly more of a learning curve than, say, chickens, rabbits, pigs, that sort of thing. So it takes a little more work to look after them. Also, some of the equipment is a little more expensive, especially if you're getting an extractor and that kind of thing. However, you can do it on the cheap. But with our first hive, it was a medium frame. So it's like half the size of a regular frame. And we got 40 pounds of honey out of that. And that was the first year with one hive. So that made a lot of mead. And we had honey. We're still using that honey. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you have that and you've already got some, fruit trees growing.
Yep.
To help kick off the, fermenting of the honey and all of that, and some clean water. I mean, yeah, that's free alcohol right there, folks.
Exactly. Again, you can
no
save
government
it
dipping in and taking something when you want to make that, right?
No.
And even raw honey keeps forever. There's no expiry.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah. You can use it for all kinds of stuff. I mean, there's all kinds of weird medical uses for honey, and
that's just it. It's
recreational uses too, apparently.
Good for a lot of first aid treatments as well. So,
all right, I might have to rethink my bee thing. It sounds like they're more work than pigs, and my wife was more on board with bees than pigs, but pigs sound like it might be the way to go.
But you need both if you want to have honey ham.
It's a valid point.
But bees, you can put like if you're in a townhouse and you have a very small piece of property, you can have bees, whereas you can't have pigs. So,
although isn't like we talked about this a little while ago with the weird regulations in Ontario for bees and having them X number of feet away from the thing, and the only people that can get away with that apparently are the government, who just put beehives wherever they want and don't tell anyone.
Again, but the thing is, the bees, they circle up like 10 feet before they even go blasting off towards their food source. Most people don't even know you have a beehive until it's like you actually tell them, because the bees kind of come in at a steep angle to come in and land as well. So it's not like the people are gonna be like, having bees fly through their apartment to get back to the hive or anything. So I don't know. It's a pretty good stealthy thing.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in the idea of honeybees, particularly around. You mentioned that you made some mead. Is there any other brewing and things going on to not pay those excise taxes?
Yeah, you can do different wines, and like we do a blueberry wine, we do our mead, we distill water. So there's lots of things you can do.
All right. I like the idea of doing mead. We went through what was that? What did we have for it? Was a orange, a 40 or a 50 pound. We had a 5-gallon pail of honey that we bought.
Yeah.
It was
we
heavy.
used half of it to make
it was very heavy.
Yeah. Well, we got it on the cheap, so giving the money value of it wouldn't.
Oh yeah, I carrying it around Ottawa. It
was mostly a 5-gallon bucket of honey. I mean, it was. Yeah, but we made a substantial amount of mead in the first batch, and that was only half the bucket. And we'll make another batch.
Close to 14 gallons.
Yeah.
Something like that. I'd have to go back and look, but we're very interested in the idea of bees to turn it into fermented alcohol beverages.
Oh yeah, and basically you just need one hive. So I want to say like a nuke. So your queen and 4 or 5 frames will run you about $240, I want to say.
I mean, that's not a lot more than what we paid for the honey.
Yeah.
I mean,
and then
but then also extraction and care and feeding and keeping and winterizing and
your hives. Your hives and frames aren't that much. I want to say you'll spend maybe max $80 on, a couple supers and your bottom board and the roof. And you don't need to feed them at all, especially in Ontario. They do all that themselves. You check them maybe every 2-3 weeks, make sure they're doing okay. For extraction, you can kind of do it on the cheap. You can get I want to say a manual extractor, or like one of the spinny ones for like $120.
Or you can
We
just
also-
join a bee club. If you join a
Yeah.
local bee club, they can actually rent you their extractor usually.
Oh,
For
exactly.
Yeah. Then we also bought that honey for like half price. So like for the same amount of money yearly, we could be generating the same amount of honey, but we only pay that one time.
Yeah.
And then maybe like subsequent years a rental fee for whatever we need to do the thing.
And
This
with
might
our
be a-
bees too, we can
Yeah.
walk up, I want to say within 2 feet of them. And as long as you're calm and not bugging them, not hitting them, not,
Yeah.
causing a disturbance, they'll leave you alone. So
Might need to look into this.
Yeah, I think I'm going to look into some bees some more. Was there any other surprises getting into the animal husbandry stuff? Anything that you were really shocked by with getting chickens or pigs or bees or Highland cows? Was it the accents? I would imagine it's the accents.
Yeah.
nothing too surprising. I want to say I was surprised only by the amount of work based on the size of the animal. So I find the smaller the animal, the more work. So the cows,
care and feeding, or is that processing, or is that all the way through?
care and feeding, definitely not processing. So the bees probably take, well, not as much work, but the chickens and the rabbits are more work. Feeding, looking after them, picking the eggs, making sure they got feed and water, making sure, they're the bed or like litter, making sure they're looked after that way. So they take a lot of work that way. The bees still take a lot of care as well. The cows, you could leave for 2 weeks, and as long as the water's going to last for 2 weeks, they'll be fine as long as they got feed and water. So it's funny. I thought, the larger their animal, the more work involved would be. It is when you're processing, but not when you're looking after them.
Wouldn't have expected that. And I have a kind of a closeout question. You get to meet you 10 years ago. What's the one piece of advice you would tell 10 years ago you?
Buy some awesome stocks like Lockheed Martin with dividends.
Find a girl from Quebec sooner? Is that maybe?
Don't find a girl at all. Yeah, definitely the stocks. Get some good stocks that pay dividends when you're young.
All right, so 10 years ago, Darren is getting stock tips.
Yeah. And
so for all you youngins out there, GamerStop, buy some now while you can.
Gamer stocks now.
Yeah.
And basically stock some money away and get yourself some property and land. And even if it's vacant land, and then as long as you're able to build on it, then you're work your way towards your dream that way. If that's your dream. I mean, there's some people's dream who's living in a multi-million-dollar condo down in Toronto or Vancouver or something, which doesn't work for me. But
the airport shoebox.
Don't listen to us.
I mean, I'd like to live in a multi-million-dollar compound with my friends where we've got our own bees and chickens and ostriches and emus, just because, even if we're not allowed to.
And a moat.
Well, and our own gun range and helicopter landing pad, and
that was
like
the one thing I
essentials.
had to have is my own range. So yeah, I got to build that this summer when we cleared some pasture space for the cows.
But only for infrequent use per the law.
No, I'm out there quite often, but the unfortunate thing is it's not recognized. So I can only take my lever actions or the bolt actions back that I can't. Yeah.
You wouldn't
So,
I
dare.
can't tell if this is a typo or not, but they're recommending that Gavin become a ranch Davidian.
Hey-o.
I really...
Do I have to get good at guitar and play nothing but like Christian rock?
No,
Yeah,
you just got to get it's for dipping all your carrot sticks into.
Okay. I'm in. I'm in. But yes.
Yeah. Ranch Davidian. That's very good. Thank you, Taxpayer Dave.
Yeah. That reminds me, Dave, I've still got your name tape, bud.
I think we're going to put that as a show title.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because we're not on a watch list already.
All right. Does anybody else have other questions for Darren? That was kind of my closing question. There was the advice piece. But is there...
I'm just glad that he didn't join us from his hot tub.
I was tempted to, but the sound wouldn't be as good. So, and I don't have as many lights out there. So
yeah, because I've seen some of the photos you've posted from that thing, and that would definitely have got us banned on the YouTube.
Yeah.
All right. If people do want to see your hot tub photos, where can they find out more about what you do and see what you're
That's his
working
OnlyFans, yeah.
Yeah. We've got the YouTube channel that we started. So if you type in Thor Haven Farm into YouTube, or you type in Thor Haven Farm into Google, it should bring up our website. If you type in Thor Haven Farm into Facebook, it'll bring up our Facebook page as well. So I can be reached on all of those. And I believe our email's on the YouTube as well as our website, thorhavenfarm@outlook.com.
All right, so I'll put some links to those in the show notes. I'm not going to put the Facebook one because I'm not allowed to go on Facebook. I have been banned from the social media, but I can put the links to the YouTube and the website in the show notes, and then people can find you that way.
Yeah,
which will be great.
Yeah.
And it looks like Thor Haven Farm. It looks like it's mostly the handicraft side of things. It doesn't look like I can go buy a cow today.
No, unfortunately, we can't sell as much right now. The Highland cows, we will be able to sell the meat eventually, but we're still waiting for the young ones to grow up a bit. So
yeah, I'm sure if you wanted to trade and barter, but not buy for money some things, you could probably reach out to them via the emails and stuff.
Exactly.
I hear semi-precious metals are a good thing to trade and barter with.
Or rum.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think Taxpayer Dave is the Dave that you think it is.
No,
Dave,
it's not.
Gavin.
No, never mind. I don't have anything for you, Taxpayer Dave. I'm sorry.
I don't think Taxpayer Dave and Random Dave are the same guy.
I just assumed that, but that's what you get for assuming. Yeah. Apologies.
Right, so we'll put links to those in the show notes there. Is there other things that we needed? No, I guess the only other reminders we have are book club is coming up. Next week, we're going to get on another watch list.
Oh.
We're doing Dr. Theodore's Industrial Society and Its Future. And
kind of touches on some stuff we talked about today.
Well, I think he would like the Highland cows.
And fucking off to your own farm and being self-sufficient and living with nature.
Yeah, where was he wrong? I never mind.
Well, we'll get into that next week.
Yeah.
I mean, there are maybe like 17 cases where I disagree with him.
Yeah, out of a lot.
And then April Book Club is going to be Fight Club, which we're not talking about.
No, except on the last Monday of the month, next month.
As is normal.
Other than
Book
that,
Club is on the last Monday of the month. This month, Industrial Society and Its Future, you have time to read it in the week between when this comes out and when we talk
very
next
short.
week. And Fight Club, you've got like 5 weeks to get through Fight Club. You'll be fine. You can totally do it. Just don't discuss it with anyone until the last Monday of April.
And then never again.
I really want to thank Darren for coming on. I think this was very enlightening for lot of our listeners that are getting interested in prepping and more self-sufficiency, as we do a lot of complaining about the government, of which there have been a few tonight, mostly the interference and registration side of the house. But I wanted to thank you for coming on, and I really am excited to see what you guys keep building, because every time I see you post something on Instagram, I'm like, oh, that looks cool. I kind of want one.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me, guys.
Got, your own Viking settlement.
Exactly. We've got a bunch of stuff still going on, a lot of other projects. The Viking Hall is still in the works. So
I'm sure, like, with the COVID stuff and not being able to socialize, if you needed a work crew to come because you can't hire one locally, we'll gladly make the trip and help you raise your hall and break it in.
And that's just it. Is like, once this COVID thing is done, then we want that Viking Hall ready to go so we can have some feasts and parties in there.
That's fantastic. For everybody that's listening, if you're not chatting with us on Discord and you want to, we have a Discord. That's probably the best way to get in touch with us now, because I'm not allowed on social media.
We're all on there to some varying degree.
And then we'll go around. We'll see wherever we can find everybody. Obviously, Darren, you're going to be able to be found at Thor Haven Farm. Is there anywhere else on the internet people ought to be looking for your stuff?
That's the best bet way.
All right, so make sure to check Darren out, Thor Haven Farm. Links are in the show notes for that. Buy yourself a scarf. They look great.
Yeah. Dish towels too. Those look really nice.
They're pretty awesome. Yeah. And I mean, there's tons of male cooks out there, and those dish towels they rock. Yeah.
And if you're looking for stuff to hang on your walls too, I believe there's some photographic endeavors that you've done as well over the years.
Yeah, some of the ones from around the farm, as well as our trip to Iceland and stuff on there. So
good stuff. Gavin, where can everybody find you?
The best place to find me is Instagram, UrbexGTA.
All right, Benny, where can everybody find you?
English.ca.
Don't sound so excited about it. Ian, where can everyone find you?
They can email me at theislandretreat@gmail.com, or of course, Sunday evenings, 9 p.m. Eastern, Canadian Prepper Podcast on YouTube and Facebook, I guess, live.
Yeah, and you guys have guests and talk about prepping, but I have cool guests and occasionally talk about prepping.
we talk about crappy government too, occasionally too. So there you go.
There's a lot of crossover there with those shows.
I guess that's why we're friends.
Yeah.
We'll
if I can help you out with
week,
well, I'm probably going to sit in on Ian's show for reasons next week. If I can help people out with first aid supplies or tactical accessories, you go use discount code Patriot when you're shopping at Ragnarok Tactical. $10 flat rate shipping, and I have way more tourniquets in stock right now than I could ever possibly want. So, I finally got a giant order of tourniquets come in, so if you need one, now's a great time, because I haven't been able to get them for 4 months, and now I have way too many.
4 limbs, 4 tourniquets. That's how that works.
Yeah, you one is none.
Yeah.
Right. Lots of styles and colors of that. I have to apologize to Rod Giltaka. Rod does not have any cows, least of all Highland cows, so we could not get Rod onto the show tonight. His adventures in animal husbandry, when he sent me his show prep, were not acceptable. So no Rod this week. We're going to try and fit him in next week. We'll see if he's ready for book club. If you want to email the show, the best place to do that is going to be send us a message, feedback at CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. I'll probably read your stuff when we don't have a guest. I know there's some stuff in the backlog there. And for all of our listeners out there in the podcast land, I'd like to remind you that you're the true North, strong and